Awesome. And we're live. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the Recruitment Show. Today, it's awesome to be joined, and I want to get this right, by Ryan Higginson, VP at Pitney Bowes. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for joining me.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So you are, as you were just telling me, you're in one of your offices right now.
I am, yes. I took advantage to come in and see some people today. So, based out of one of our Harlow offices here.
Nice. So we'll dive into all the kind of structure and how you guys have evolved over COVID. But specifically, so let's have a chat through remote work. It'd be great to hear how you guys have found the last couple of years, probably almost 2.5, 3 years now, actually. How things evolved. With a little bit of kind of a look to the future. There's so much conversation now around flexibility, remote work. I'm finding number one or two things candidates are looking for from new jobs is flexibility. And many leaving companies, if they're asking them to come back, but have been used to flexible working. So we can explore that a little bit, which would be great. And then let's discuss well-being as well, which is a real key topic for everyone.
Sure.
So what happens? COVID came, and how did you guys adapt, and what happened?
I mean, I can remember it vividly, actually. March 13th is when we shut our offices down as things started to sort of ramp up. But thankfully, we were quite a flexible company already. So we didn't have to kind of suddenly go and, pull in a load of laptops and give them out to employees. Most people were working flexibly in some form or fashion, just to not the extremes that we've been through. So we navigated that quite easily, I would say. And sure, we went from probably 3 days in the office to 5 days at home and everything in between. But I'm pleased to say we managed to move to it quite quickly. And then as we got through this and realized this was going to be a longer period of time, that's where we started to think, okay, what more can we do? It's easy to just say I can work from home, but this looked to be for a sustained period of time and we needed to do things differently. So we started to, focus, you touched upon well-being, but we started to think about mental health. That was a big focus of ours for the last couple of years. And we constantly listen to our teams. We're listening. We have a lot of surveys. Go out to our team to just get feedback. How are things going? We've set them up with kind of basic office environment. Have they got the tools to do the job? Are they comfortable? Are they safe? That was the primary focus at the beginning.
So was everyone at home, or did you have anyone in a?
We have an element of our workforce are client facing, and they had to obviously continue to do what they do. We support many of the hospitals, as example, so they continue to be out there and serving our clients, going through the usual safety protocols naturally. But then the majority of our team, including the 100 telesales people that were very much in the office, literally March 13th we shut, and they work from home and have been kind of ever since. So there was different impacted populations for sure. Some stayed out there and continued to serve our clients as we do, and others went back home and started to work from home.
How did you find it? Were you used to working at home, or?
Yes, I was probably 3 days in the office.
Before COVID.
Yes, before COVID, I was 3 days in, so probably 2-hour commute there and back. I was fine. I think we didn't at the beginning. We didn't know how long this was going to be, so you kind of just got on with it. And I was just pleased that the team was safe. We could put everybody at home and get them working, but primarily focused on their safety and then well-being as we move through this. But initially it was okay. And, I think as we start to realize this is now longer term, and as you said at the beginning, we still don't know how this is going to kind of pan out. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm really intrigued to see where this goes. And for me, I'm trying to keep my mind open and just let people tell us what they're feeling, what are they experiencing, what are they liking, what are they not liking, and everything in between.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it took a lot of people a while to adapt. Because, there was so much campaigning for flexible working pre-COVID. There was loads of stuff. I'd even done a talk about 2 weeks before everything shut down about like the benefits of flexible working and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then suddenly everyone got flexible working, but it wasn't the flexible working that we were all hoping for, I don't think.
No, very true.
Because suddenly it's like you're forced to be in at home 5 days, and then there's not much separation between work and home when you're at home. I find it all just melds into one when you're at home. And it takes a little bit of discipline to separate, like even a lot of people, me included, actually would do like a fake commute. You kind of get out in the morning, have a little walk around, get dressed, have a walk around, come back in, and then you're in the right mindset. But it was quite easy, I think, just to drift into, out of bed at your kitchen table, at your desk, or whatever, wherever you were able to work. And many didn't have a nice setup, so I think it took a while, a lot of people to adjust, I think.
And still does. I think you touched on it. Discipline, I think, is really important. When I sometimes hear some of the teams say, "Oh, I struggle to get lunch today," and I'm like, "That's on you. You got to make the time. You've got to find the time. You can't just kind of." And it's easy to get heads down. We've all been there, but discipline's really important. I think that balance piece can get knocked out of shape when you haven't got other people to bounce off and say, "Right, let's go have lunch," and things like that. I think it's still important even now, even though we've been doing this for a number of years. There's still behaviours out there that we've got to be careful don't kind of creep in.
Yeah, no, that's true. So as things opened up, did you guys start to encourage people to come back? And I'm going to not use the word, because a lot of people are using the word come back to work. And obviously, as we know, people are working at home, to come back to the office.
Yeah.
So were you encouraging people to come back? Did you go through a variety of different scenarios? How did it work for you guys?
Absolutely. We took a lot of kind of planning and preparation, and I must say the facilities team we have did a great job of laying out the office and spreading out so that when we could come back, and it was still very much fluid, that we could create another safe environment for people to come back and feel comfortable. So a lot of planning beforehand. I must say, when we then first started to open up the offices and say, would you like to come back in? Totally optional. We got a few people coming in, and then things shut back down again. So that was October, we opened up, and then back into the winter months, we shut back down again as a country, as you know. So it was fits and starts. And even today, I'm in here today, and nobody said you have to come in the office. It's still very optional. Some days we're quite busy, and other days we're not. And for me, I'd say I want to keep an open mind and let people have experiences, come in, try and make it as exciting and engaging as possible when they do come in. I think it's now planned purpose. You've got to have a planned purpose to come in. You can't just rock up. And certainly you don't want to be doing your day job. You want to be coming in for a reason, and then hopefully others can feed off that. And it becomes a nice balance between flexible at home as well as in the office for other reasons as well.
So how many people actually come in, like percentage wise?
Percentage wise, we're probably still around, I would say, maximum 20%. So still, but as I say, we were very flexible before. So, but yeah, I would say still 20% now. And funny, I was just having a conversation earlier. The weather being nice now, what does that mean? Do people want to come out, or actually do they want to stay more at home and they can be more flexible? And I think, and then the winter months will creep up, and then what does that shape out to be? So I think there's so many things at play here. It's going to, as I say, fascinating to watch.
It's interesting. So interesting. So it's good. It's a good position, because like the counter to this is Elon Musk saying, "Come in or go find yourself another job."
Yeah.
So it's a real interesting variety of companies wanting to do different things. Some people I speak to, I mean, we've gone fully remote. We don't have an office. We've got a global team. But again, it doesn't suit everyone, because some people want an office and they want to be able to come in. Therefore, we're not the right firm for them. Some are mandating, like Tesla. You seem to be very, very flexible on it. Where do you think you'll ultimately land? Like, there's some benefit for both, right? I mean, it's such an interesting conversation.
Absolutely. I can't predict at the moment where we're going to land. Now, to be clear, we've certainly rationalized our real estate. We have shut down some of the offices we had. We didn't need them, and we knew that. We started that before the pandemic. So, but we're trying to keep our options open. I personally, from the interactions I've had with my direct team over the last few months, I think we come together for a meeting, and actually it's then the social event after, where we just have a drink and a meal maybe. I think that, again, keeps those connections strong, knowing that you may not see each other for another 2 months later after that. So I think it's going to be a combination of things, but I'm trying to keep my mind open and, letting our teams decide to some extent, what do they like, what do they not like? And then hopefully we can build a package and a real estate program around that suits that. I mean, we're not going to be able to please everybody, but I think if we just bide some time here, because there's still too many moving factors.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It really struck me last week. I speak to a friend of mine. And this was a friend of mine, not me. And he'd offered someone a job, and it was about a 30% pay rise. I posted it on LinkedIn last week. And at the end of the process, the candidate said, how often do I need to come into the office? I'm a 45-minute commute door to door.
Right.
And so my friend said, I'm in a couple of days a week. We're quite flexible, but it's nice to see the team. And the guy said, and it wouldn't work for me. I don't want to come in that often. What's the minimum requirement for me coming in? So my friend went to HR and he talked it through, and they agreed, and they ended up saying, look, do you know what? Come in 1 day a month. we're going to get all the team together. It's nice and stuff. Candidate said, no, that wouldn't work for me either, and rejected the offer and decided to stay where he was for less money.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing because you can look at that scenario in a bunch of different ways. Like on the one hand, like be flexible as an organization. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, and a lot of people say this privately, there's still a lot of people that haven't quite got their head around, like, people do actually work at home. Mm-hmm. And you haven't got to see them in the office. So there's some really interesting scenarios. But then the other part of it is flexibility should be two-way. It feels like.
Yes.
Like, yeah, come in one day a month and see a team. I think that's quite interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. I think this planned purpose is key. I think if you have a purpose, you plan it, you communicate it and promote it, and then you have the event. I've got an opportunity to bring the whole team together for just a very informal barbecue in the middle of July. Oh, nice. We haven't had the chance to come together. We're quite dispersed, but we're bringing everybody together for a barbecue one afternoon, and just a chance to really connect, see everybody, particularly those people that we haven't seen for a number of years because of where we are living now and things like that. So yeah. I think maybe more of that will again keep those. You want to keep those connections strong. You want to keep the culture strong and those pieces that you kind of work with every day. But in this new world, and I think we can keep testing things and trialing different things. We're going to learn from this.
So how do you do so on culture, which is an interesting one? So mm-hmm. you guys are very flexible, which is great. Mm-hmm. How have you? What kind of little things have you done to keep it together virtually?
Yeah, I think one thing that stood us in good stead is our culture, or certainly our values we work with, are very, very simple. At Pitney Bowes, we talk about we do the right thing the right way, and that kind of is a good guiding principle. I think generally everybody works to that. That's how they've been brought up. But I think if you have a simple kind of value system and a culture that drives on that helps. We're looking to kind of more. The focus we've got right now is around kind of inclusion. That's a big focus of ours this year. We've started a inclusion, wellbeing, and sharing community, and we're bringing in guest speakers to raise the awareness. So we had back in March, it was International Women's Day. We had a female guest speaker that was talking about females' work in the employment. In next week, we've got again focusing on pride. We've got actually a famous guest speaker coming in to talk about gender reassignment and how that's worked through. So I think if we can raise awareness through
this is all virtual. This is all
virtual. Absolutely, it's all virtual again. So it helps. You can obviously monitor, view it live in the office if you're in, but virtually you can see.
Oh, so you have someone in, you stream it live, and you can come in or not.
Yeah. They're actually not coming in, so they'll be streaming live themselves, the guest speakers. But for me, it's about awareness. Raise the awareness. Storytelling, I think, is a great way of helping the culture, expand and continue to share best practices and the behaviours that we're looking for. And so far that's been really interesting. It's been some probably uncomfortable conversations that we haven't normally had, but for me, it's been enlightening just to tease out that and raise that awareness across the whole employee base. So keen to see where that goes this year.
And then with your immediate team, have you've been doing video chats and team things like that?
Yes. Yeah, video chats, team meetings virtually while we were in the pandemic, and then we've now started to come back out and do kind of once a quarter. We would have a face-to-face, as I say, and then a bit of a social interaction after, which I think is important. Again, we're finding our feet there. Not everybody wanted to join at the beginning, and we said, okay, we'll do hybrid, so you can join if you want to and do virtual as well. And I think now we're starting to see more people shift to that. Actually, I want to see you face-to-face. We're coming together. Let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, it's nice. Over COVID, how did you deal with the thing with the video? Is it's quite easy to hide behind a little bit. It's hard to really get a feeling if people are struggling, if they were burning out. There's an awful lot of people burnt out over COVID, still are. How did you go about checking that people were actually okay?
We have a lot of check-ins as managers with our teams on a regular basis, and I think that obviously ramped up. And rather than getting straight into business, I think everybody made a conscious decision to say, let's have 10, 15 minutes at the beginning to just have a conversation. How are you doing? We trained up over 40 mental health first aiders across the business, really just before the pandemic, and then as we went into the pandemic, just to help allow managers spot potential issues or where things maybe somebody's looking for help and not finding it. Just keeping raising that awareness there. So yeah, we kind of go on. Sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to say, so you're meant to the mental health first aiders.
Yes.
So they would they just check in with people randomly, or they would?
They're diverse, so we've got them across all functions and areas. So we purposely sort of targeted people and asked people in different groups that represent all of our functions, so that we've got good representation, and hopefully they share stories as well. And again, just helping spot. Not everybody's trained. Don't get me wrong, but just spot potential areas that we've got to be careful of and watch out for. And somebody's wanting to ask for help and hasn't been able to. And as you say, I approached the pandemic when we first kind of went into it that I didn't know everybody's situation at home. Everybody's situation was unique. So there wasn't no one hard and fast rule. We just had to be open and try and be as supportive as possibly can. And that regular check-in to kind of just see. And as you say, not everybody goes on video. They're not comfortable to. So
you didn't. So you could just say they didn't have to put their video on. No,
they didn't. Never insisted. Kind of promoted it to say, look, it's nice to see everybody. It helps with the interaction. That body language is a bit better on video versus just speaking to a blank screen, but not forcing anybody. Again, there's different reasons out there for and somebody may not be feeling comfortable that day and happy that day and wanted to stay off camera, and why should we force them to change that? I think it's just, but you might have a check-in next time to say how you doing and how's things. Just keep that kind of regular communication going.
It's tough. A lot of leaders really struggle too, right? Because most people, this is the first time that they've done this. Leaders were struggling, employees looking to leaders to to lead and do all of these things, and it was a tough moment. I think a tough moment for many people, and I think also sometimes it's hard for people to say, like, hey, I'm really struggling. I could really do with some time off, or I could really do with some help. And it was tough because a lot of people I spoke to earlier on were scared that they'd be the next one out the door. Because quite a few companies cut quite deep. They didn't really look after their employees. They just cut, and then people get really worried, and then they don't want to take off time. And so it was a real interesting one. Some companies behaved really well, looked after their staff and created the right environment. And then the ones that didn't have experienced this great resignation, I think, a great resignation from bad companies with bad cultures and all of that stuff. So it's a real interesting variety of ways that people were treated. And people remember how you make them feel.
Very much so.
It's been really interesting. And if we just think about hiring for a sec, the companies that didn't quite behave well have really struggled to keep staff and to attract new ones. I think it's really fascinating.
And flexible work is going to play a huge part, as you just described a couple of examples already. It's going to be a big part of that recruitment process. Flexible
working, it's amazing how it's suddenly become. It's literally. I mean, we had a couple of clients offer some candidates last week, and both of them, the first thing they said was, "Oh, what's the flexible working arrangements?" It's amazing how it's shifted, and I find people actually are happy to take a reduction in salary for increased flexibility.
It's until you've got it and experienced it, you can't really put a value on it, as you say. And it wasn't perhaps the dynamic it is now. I mean, the fact this lasted so long, we literally all behaviors managed to change in that period. It wasn't like a 3-month blip where we then we'll go back in. This was 2 years of pretty stressful times, and I think people have realized that benefits of the flexible working. As I say, we were pretty good already, not perfect, and we were still on that journey, and we still remain on that journey as well. As I say, it's not over, far from it. It's going to be, as I say, fascinating to see where it goes next.
Well, it's a debate, isn't it? I mean, some people want people in 5 days. Others really value the flexibility. Some are fully remote. I think a hybrid's quite interesting one, because you don't really have the same experience. Like if I don't know, if five of you around that table and one person's at home on the video and you're sharing a little private joke and they can't quite hear, the Wi-Fi's gone a little bit, they feel a little bit excluded from the conversation. I find that the hybrid stuff's still a bit clunky.
You touched upon it there, that our first meeting we had off site, actually, where we came together, Wi-Fi was the biggest issue. It wasn't good enough. So I would say to anybody, if you're looking to go off site for a meeting, make sure the Wi-Fi is really, really good, because it's imperative to make sure the meeting, especially if you have got a hybrid meeting, it's imperative that it continues to work. And again, we take that for granted. we're sat at home. We've probably boosted our signals or our broadband packages over the last few years, and usually it's pretty good. You go to an office, and external office, and it's not so good. It can damage the meeting immensely.
Yeah. Also, the countryside in the UK, it's not so good sometimes.
That's true.
They haven't invested in the fiber in a lot of rural areas. Also, the phone service is a bit patchy.
Yes. Yeah, it's credible. Some of the things we can do, and we still can't actually keep a mobile signal between like a 30-mile journey. It's incredible.
Yeah, we need to invest a little bit more heavily in that. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely get the Wi-Fi going. Yeah, no, I love that. How have you found hiring over the last few years?
It's so. I mean, we haven't done a huge amount of hiring, certainly during the pandemic piece. But as we've started to come out and we are now hiring, it's been okay. You touched upon it earlier. Flexible is a big part, and I'm proud of what we offer there. And that whole employee experience. Again, we're looking at how we can repackage that. Sometimes I think we take things for granted. We're used to it and we expect it. And sometimes I think we need to promote that and say actually our employee experience is so much richer now. We are very firmly in the flexible camp, and we will continue that way. And here's the benefits that come with it. But it's certainly been a question that is raised by the candidates as we have gone through recruitment. And the talent pool is now far diverse. As I say, we used to have a telesales team based in the office where typically we would recruit 20 miles maximum around where we are in the office. Now we have people dispersed across the whole country. So the talent pool has got a lot broader in that respect. But then you've got to navigate through, okay, we do want to come together as a team. How do we do that when we've got people spread around the country? So again, it's not straightforward, but it's certainly allowed us to have a much broader talent pool, which has been really, really impressive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most of our clients, we do international searches, and many don't mind where these people are based at all. No. Some do, but many don't. And over COVID, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, everyone was at home anyway.
Yes.
And suddenly you're sourcing, essentially you can source anywhere globally for some of these roles. Mm-hmm. And, there's no more diverse talent pool than the globe.
Yes.
So absolutely. It was amazing. And to your point, as long as you've got a good Wi-Fi connection, then, you're good, and you can plug in and you can do some stuff. And there's been some really interesting firms. They're called employers of record, but, essentially, they enable you to hire anyone anywhere. Mm-hmm. For smaller firms where they don't want to set up a company, these firms enable you to do that. And it's been incredible. You can be living in rural India, but work for a UK firm, for example.
It is incredible. Yeah. And it's a win-win. I think it's a win for the employees and a win for the employers as well. The talent you can get exposed to, just the diversity and the experiences that you're now able to tap into is immense. And we talk about the Great Resignation. I know we look at it as a great opportunity. We can go and find new talent, new hires, and continue to sort of move forward.
Well, what's your view on pay by location? Unfair question. I'll give you some context for those that don't see. I mean, for Facebook, for example, they said to their group in San Fran, if you want to move out of San Francisco, which is a very high cost location, and you want to go to somewhere cheaper, no worries, but you're going to take a reduction in salary for it. What are your thoughts on that? For both, I mean, maybe if you split it up for current employees, I mean, would they be happy with taking a cut? Or for people that are coming in, you're hiring, you kind of give them, well, you're in London, come into the office, or go live in Scotland and whatever, come in.
It's a great question. And other factors at play at the moment as well, with kind of inflation and, price of fuel and everything in between. Haven't got a hard and fast answer just yet. I think this is one of those other things we're going to have to let play out and see where things land, because it's not straightforward. I even bring it back to what we were talking about internally. We were kind of saying, okay, people that are not driving to the office as much now are saving an enormous amount on fuel, petrol prices, diesel prices. So that's one benefit. But we know inflation's much higher across the board on everything else. And particularly as we move into the winter months, what do we then have to think about? We pay a monthly allowance to support our employees from a kind of utility standpoint. What does we need to think about there? So there's lots of moving parts at this, but again, I think that's going to be one that kind of has to shake out over the coming months, possibly years. But it's highly emotive as well. Highly emotive.
It is highly emotive because it's about pay, and people. it's one of those things, you know, like people
And I'm
aren't
still doing the
comfortable.
job. I'm still doing the job you paid me for. And maybe you should be doing it in a slightly different way, but I'm still doing the job.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's some great arguments to say, does it really matter where I live?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like really? In America, so we do it on the US and many states there, it's illegal to ask a candidate what they're currently earning.
Right.
So in the UK, it's kind of normal. You know, what's your current salary package, and then you know there's some negotiation to be had, and you know maybe they'll get an increase, maybe not, whatever. In America, it's right. You know, we're going to pay X for the job. It doesn't matter if you're earning more or less, but this is what we're paying. And if you're interested, great. You know, let's engage or not. And that's been really, really interesting because you've got people that might be earning way less, doubling their salary. You've got people that may be earning way more that would also get excluded because sometimes people feel uncomfortable hiring people and paying them less than they were on that they were on because they might go off and find a job paying more money in a bit. So it's been really interesting to look at the effect it's had in the US, and the salaries have gone up like unbelievably.
They are, and continue to.
And
To the US, do they
continue.
have a similar thing to like the London waiting as we would know it here? They have a similar concept?
Well, so in places like New York, San Francisco, LA, the higher cost cities, the salaries have been more than somewhere like, I don't know, Raleigh, North Carolina, which
Right.
is some of the banks have relocated stuff out there. So there's a premium for working and living in New York. But then what you've seen is loads of people leave New York as well. Like over the pandemic, they didn't have to be there. So many people moved down to Florida, Texas, where the income tax is way lower.
Yeah. And space,
just
more
pay
space.
federal tax, more space, you know, a better work-life balance, sunshine. So a lot of people have done that, and employers have been much more open with where they're hiring from, and remote work and stuff like that. And then some have done pay by location, but I think generally, if you're working in a firm and the firm are asking you to take less money, you're looking somewhere else for another job.
I would think so. I could just imagine the conversation. It's again, but it's one of those we gotta probably have to have a conversation, go through and see where this moves out. It's like real estate. What's going to happen to a lot of the real estate there? We'll say we've rationalized a lot of ours, but many companies haven't been able to. They're still in a prime lease, and where do they take that? What are you going to do with that prime real estate? It costs a lot of money.
Well, yeah, on that, I mean, the city, you know, what to do with your cities now is interesting because I go into bank. So, you know, City of London, I mean, so busy pre-COVID, and now it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the busier days. Monday and Friday pretty quiet. And I go around. There's a guy that runs a sandwich shop. I've been there 30 years. Like to go there a lot. And I spoke to him the other day, and he said, if it continues like this, I'm closing down.
Yeah.
It's way less busy than it was even now than it was pre-COVID.
What would you say it is? What would you say?
Well, he's only trading for three. Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
What would you say it's percentage-wise of the footfall going through now?
He said it was like 50% less at least on the busiest day. Yeah. Wow. And remember, he's only trading 3 days a week now. Essentially, he was trading 5, but he's still paying rent for 7.
Yeah.
Because the City of London, for those that don't know, like Saturday and Sunday, it's really like a village. No one lives there really, and it's super quiet. And the shops are shut.
Yeah.
Monday to Friday, millions of people used to commute in. It was so busy, you just have to keep walking. You couldn't stand still; you get knocked over, kind of vibe. But now it's
very different.
It's just really different. So the effect on those kinds of businesses is sad. And what to do with the real estate. How to redesign these places and stuff. I think it's an interesting problem for people.
It is, and very real. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So no, I really like that. Awesome, Ryan. Loved the conversation. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting topics to think through and explore, and I think it's just going to continue, which is great. So
I agree. It'd be great to touch base in say 12 months time and see what we've seen pan out from our conversation today.
Oh yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to have happened in the world by then as well.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.